Hi, welcome to Raise Sensation. I'm your host, Dan, and today we're going to be looking at a book called Bonsai, Japanese Cult Movie Posters. Okay, so here it is. This is a book called Bonsai, Japanese Cult Movie Posters, and it's a book. It's actually from a German publisher, and when it says Japanese Cult Movie Posters, it's Japanese cult films, but also it's cult movies from other countries. Like there's a lot of Hammer films, there's a lot of American exploitation movies. So it's cult movies around the world. The thing about the Japanese movie posters that sets them apart and makes them worthy of their own separate books and, is the fact that they had a really different style, graphic style to their posters, their layouts, and what they were showing. They were much looser about nudity in Japan, so the sex films often had bare-breasted women on the cover or bare bottoms, and so I won't cover some of the racier films in here. I'm going to try and keep it to a minimal so we don't get in trouble with Facebook. But let's just take a quick glance through here. So here's some movies. These are Japanese films. They're, there's the sex and violence type films that they did, in Japan. And they had a lot of ones that were, they call them bad girls. And some of these have actually made it to the U.S. with subtitles. A lot of the Japanese movies that are covered in this books have not made it to the U.S. in any form, but some of these have. There's female yakuzas and biker girls and stuff like that. And like I said, there's nudity right on the movie poster. They're letting you know what you're in for. And there's a lot of really the female yakuza tale that actually made it to the U.S. So these are really interesting. Like I said, I'm not going to flip through this chapter too much because there is a lot of nudity, and I don't know how much I'll get away with. And and plus, you get the idea. People, you're on the internet, you can see this. But like I said, it gives you a look at the style of these things, and they also have like all these little things where there's like all these. There's a tiny picture here with something going on. There's another detail here, and then there's the main picture. Not that didn't happen sometimes in U.S. posters. It did, but it happens much more frequently in the Japanese posters. And so, like I said, these are really good. I like the bad girl films from Japan. They're a lot of fun if you want to track them down. Here I thought I'd point this out. This is Jimmy Wang Yu, a Hong Kong movie star. He did the One-Armed Boxer. That's probably the most famous here in the U.S. He did the Flying Guillotine, King Boxer. He did a lot of stuff. The thing is that a lot of these of Jimmy Wang Yu's later movies had an anti-Japanese bent to them, but he was still popular there. So, like I said, these are traditional kung fu things. There's a lot of action packed in each of these. There you go. Let's see. There's the Bruce Lee ones. Of course, since it's Bruce Lee or imitators, as the case may be, those are probably pretty collectible anyway. So the Hong Kong martial arts things and the Japanese martial arts things are covered pretty heavily in this book. Here's the Lone Wolf and Cub series. And I think they cover this one pretty well because just like here in the U.S., in Germany, and you'll see this here it is in English, here it is in German, going over the same details. This was a big hit over in Germany, the Lone Wolf and Cub. I'm not sure most of you are probably familiar with that if you're into exploitation films at all, under the title Shogun Assassin. was the dubbed version that was a hit here in the U.S. A cobbled together from two of the films. They took all the action scenes from two movies, put them together with a really wild score, and just famous for the geysers of blood. So there they are covering that. Let's jump ahead a little bit more. That's The Born Losers. That's the first Billy Jack film, which was a biker film, and not one of his later more political films. Here's some. I decided to pick these. These are some horror movies. I like this one for Tentacles. Tentacles is an absolutely terrible film, low budget film about an octopus. That is such a great cover compared to the movie. That's a good one for Orca too. That's really wild. It looks more like makes it look like some epic Moby Dick type of thing. And this Stanley one is another one where they cram so many different images in there. I love animal attack stuff, so books and things more so than movies. Movies rarely get animal attack stuff right, but those are some interesting ones. Now, in this one's this is a Japanese film, and it covers a character that ends up in hell, and this poster is really great. It doesn't use images from the actual film. It's cartoon representations, but the film actually does come pretty close to delivering on that. So great stuff. I like this one. I like this Japanese take on the Dracula. That's really great. I thought I'd point out this. Like I said, there's Hammer films in here, and I guess they decided to, here's a picture of Christopher Lee with the regular fangs he has when he's playing him. I guess they liked this picture, but they didn't feel like the fangs were prominent enough, so they have what are obviously cut out and pasted on extra long fangs there. It's still a great image. Oh, and this one, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it, but Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, a great. I like to think of it as a black comedy, really, because it's very unusual. I don't even know if the director really means to be funny, but it's one of the hardest to sit through serial killer movies. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This poster is so understated, but it's really great. I like that. Joe Coleman did the American poster. Joe Coleman is a great artist, illustrator who was connected to the Underground Comics, and his U.S. poster is fantastic, but that understated one is really cool too. This is a 100 Monsters. It's a Yokio movie, so it's about the Japanese folktale monsters. There was a trilogy of these movies made. And I like they really do put almost all the monsters right there on the poster for you to see. So, and more Japanese ghost movies, some really great stuff. And then here's a little bit of the sexploitation stuff. This is the here's Ilsa, those roughies, I guess we would want to call them. Nudity, but also violence and torture. Ilsa's a Nazi woman who uses the male prisoners for her own pleasure, and then, they're pretty gruesome films, but they must have done pretty well in Japan, because they got a lot of crazy posters there. Like I said, I won't go through too much of this. Oh, there's Mutations. We're giving away the shock ending monster right on the poster. There's Barbarella. It's an interesting poster. That's really captures the pop culture mood of the thing. This is like a little grab bag of posters for movies we'll probably recognize. That Westworld one's pretty cool. And so is the Scanners one. There's the posters for the Planet of the Apes. Okay, so that's this book, Bonsai, Japanese Cult Movie Posters. It's a great book. It's probably long out of print, so I'm not sure, though. You might check Amazon Germany. There might be people still selling it here in the U.S. I don't know, but like I said, it's an older book. But well worth getting. Like I said, it's a great, different way to look at the selling of some of these movies. You might be very familiar with the American posters. The other one, I wish they would do one on Thai movie posters, because the Thailand movie posters are really great. I mean, I've only seen a couple dozen of them that people have posted a lot to the internet, and maybe those ones I've seen are pretty much the best, and there's not a book's worth. But I can't help but think, I did get a Thai movie poster book, but it was for movies made in Thailand, so it wasn't really what I was looking for. So a book like this would be on the Thai movie posters that covered all those American and other countries' movies would be great. Now, I'm going to also talk about a little, since we were looking at Japanese movie posters and talking about some Japanese exploitation stuff, I'm going to look at these. I didn't think this would gather many views because they're not visually that stunning, but these are two books by Chris D. And Chris is most well known as being the front man for the Los Angeles punk band, the Divine Horsemen. Is probably what he's most famous for. He's done other musical things too. Look up Chris D. He's out there. But these, he was writing reviews for a fanzine called Cult Movies. I believe that's what it was called. I couldn't lay my hands on one. I know I've got some around. But they were of Japanese gangster films, things that were really hard to see here in the U.S. that hadn't been translated, as far as I know. And at the time, boy, it's hard to remember back when I was so much younger, but at one point, I used to sleep like about 4 hours a night, and that used to be enough. And so I was constantly, going to concerts or going to see live music, or, getting home and watching weird videos. The weirder, the better. And I used to trade tapes with people to, who were also into the same thing. And, somebody would find something and it would make its way through the tape trading rounds. And so I was seeing a lot of the Japanese exploitation films that were not translated. And a lot of times I would really struggle to figure out what was going on. And Chris kept promising this book when he was writing those reviews. This book was a long time coming, and you can see why. Look at this. Look how huge this is. And what it is Gun and Sword, an encyclopedia of Japanese gangster films. And this is just fantastic. Some of the movies I had seen but didn't understand what was going on. The reviews in here, sometimes there's no real reviews. I mean, look at this. Gamblers, teenage delinquents, and speedboat racing don't mix. Okay, you wouldn't know. But some of these are longer and more interesting. And the movies that were being tape traded were some of the ones that got these longer reviews in his book. And if I had had this, I would have understood what was happening in some of these films. Now, I haven't looked on the internet lately. Maybe fan subs are available for most of this stuff, and I don't know. But this is, I know the internet, you can look up just about anything and, find it and track it down and stuff. There's still something to be said for having a book like this, just flipping through it and reading a review and realizing, ooh, I want to see that. And especially when it's written by somebody who really knows this stuff. I mean, Chris D. really, when it comes to this stuff, I don't know anybody who'd do better, in English at least. So, I mean, it's just a fantastic reference. Good companion if you're looking through this book on Japanese films and all these Japanese gangster posters at the beginning, whet your appetite. This would be a good place to go. He's also got this, Outlaw Masters of Japanese Film. There's a couple people in here that you would actually recognize. It's really a book that's more for people who are already into it. You know, there's the first one is it's interviews with Outlaw Masters of Japanese Films, is the title, and the very first interview is with the guy who directed Battle Royale. But although he got famous for that, he had a long history of other films that would be of interest to people who are into cult movies. I guess the most famous person in here is Sonny Chiba, but it's really good. Great interviews. Chris D is one of those guys who did so much research. He'll ask people questions about movies that they've forgotten they've made, kind of thing. I recommend both these films if you're really thinking about getting into trying to watch and have an understanding of Japanese exploitation movies. I think this is a great place to start, especially for the older things. Anyway, that's my video.